On your Tuesday episode of Locked On Raptors, a 4-1 Western road trip, a win over the Thunder, 10 games over 500. Immanuel Quickley is the player of the week. It's time to get irresponsible up in this bitch.
You are Locked On Raptors, your daily Toronto Raptors podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey, what's going on? And welcome to another episode of Locked On Raptors, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. It is Tuesday, January the 27th, and I'm your host, Sean Woodley. I've been covering the Raptors now for 12 seasons on various platforms, and I'm back from being lost in the country and unable to navigate home on Monday until later in the afternoon when the roads cleared. That's why there was no show yesterday, but I've got 2 full days worth of takes banked up. I guess not 2. It's like 4 days since I did a podcast. Holy crap. It's very exciting. You can find all my work over on Blue Sky. You can find the show on Instagram. You can join us at the Locked On Raptors Discord server where everyone is hooting and hollering. It's a great thing to do. We're off and running here on your Tuesday edition of the podcast. I'm very excited, and with me is someone who I also think is very excited about the current state of your 29-19 Toronto Raptors. It is Big V Vivek Jacob from Raptors in 7. Big V, how the hell are you?
I'm doing good, man. I'm staying in. I'm watching all the sports. Hey, it's a perfect time to be indoors, watch the Australian Open, watch a lot of NBA basketball, and just hang out. So, and what better Sunday, I wake up, I watch Manchester United beat Arsenal, stay in,
we love that. Yeah.
Just chill. And then comes the Raptors against the Thunder. I'm saying, hey, if they can just put up a fight, that'd be nice. Up until that point, they were 0-10 against teams with a plus 600 record. So you're not expecting much. And then they go and do what they did. And they beat the champs in their own building.
Pretty awesome stuff. An impromptu game off the top. Before we'll get into, a big picture conversation about where the Toronto Raptors stand within the Eastern Conference. Can they, in fact, win the Eastern Conference? That is the crux of today's show. But we have to start with an impromptu game of what sound did you make? What sound did you make when Scottie Barnes blocked Chet Holmgren's mid-range jumper that would have tied the game in the late going of that game against the OKC Thunder? If you don't recall, Chet Holmgren, very tall man, seemed to be no match for the defensive ability of one Scottie Barnes. What sound did you make when that block happened?
So I was just more in terms of words. I wasn't in sound mode because when Quickley hit his second triple, I did my own bang.
That's sort of an onomatopoeia. It's spelled out that it is kind of a sound. So yeah, there you go.
and then Scottie gets the block, and I'm like, let's go.
There you go.
So you got a bang and you got a let's go out of me. What did you get?
So I was watching the game at my parents' house, and like their place is kind of small. It's very echoey, and the baby was asleep in literally the next room, and so it was a very muted. Just like a cackle, but a whisper, kind of something you might find in a horror film. Anyway, let's get to it here, V. The sort of crux of today's
just a quick
show.
Aside.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
I have to say, I love when you do your takes from the game chair, and I can tell the baby's asleep, and you are like in ASMR mode, and they're just like, the Raptors were amazing today. You had to see it to believe it.
Scottie Barnes is the defensive player of the year. Let that sink in. Scottie Barnes for defensive player of the year. Yeah, great note. I had to record my thoughts from outside of my parents' house on Sunday night because of that whole thing. Hey, it was fun. It was people liked it. People like the outside in the inclement weather videos. I'll do more of them as tonight. I'll just do one in a snow angel in my totally covered backyard. We have waited too long to dive on in here, Big V. It's time to get irresponsible, maybe we're going to be responsible and tamp down our excitement just a smidge. But today on the show, We are, in fact, digging into whether or not the Raptors can win the Eastern Conference. Not in the standings. The Pistons have too much of a cushion. And ultimately, who cares if you're the 1 seed if you go and actually do the real thing, which is make it through all of the playoff rounds and make it to the NBA Finals, a thing the Toronto Raptors have, in fact, done very recently in the grand scheme of NBA history. So we know what it's all like. We know what it takes. This Eastern Conference is weird. This Eastern Conference has teams that, while good at the top, have many questions and have had swoons and ups and downs and, things you can poke at with their resume or their roster builds. The Raptors very much in that mix as well. But let me just ask you this basic question, Big V. Why not the Toronto Raptors when it comes to winning the Eastern Conference in the spring?
Why not? I mean, right now we're looking for all the reasons why. I think after you look at this Eastern Conference
test,
when you look at this Eastern Conference, it might not be necessary that you have to be great.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what presents the opportunity. I think that, teams maybe don't have to be as far along in their process. Like you look at the Knicks, who are kind of, you'd obviously say are further along in their process than the Raptors. You'd say they're the favorites against the Raptors in a best of 7.
Sure.
But is there a world in which, say, they're playing the way we've seen for the last few weeks and the defense is bottom 10 and maybe there's some stuff going on with Cat that they're
stuff
not
going on with Cat in the playoffs? No. And I say this as a devout Cat supporter, but we could call a spade at this point.
Yeah, and so that's where you can see the door, you can see the path to potentially coming out of the East.
Yeah, like I think if you're looking at the reasons why you think the Raptors might be able to do it, one, that open Eastern Conference, I think the postseason in the East is just going to be a big old game of rock, paper, scissors, Royal Rumble style. Like, I think the matchups will obviously dictate a lot. We'll talk a little bit more about the matchups that we are sort of fearing / relishing in a potential playoff scenario in a little bit. But that is, I think, number one. Like, there is going to be a pathway here. If you get the right bracket, if you get the right opponents, if you get some luck, which is a necessity for every team that makes it to an NBA Finals, there's a pathway here for the Raptors because they've put themselves in the conversation. They've put themselves in a spot where they are very much in the running for a home court date in the first round of the playoffs, and who knows beyond that. These are all the things you can kind of do to put the luck in your favor. I also think, like, this is a team that I think can play a lot of different ways. I think that lends itself well to the postseason. They can play, sort of more of an offense-led, 2-guard style, a little bit smaller, a little bit more spry and fast. You can go with a more sort of defensive-heavy look. Obviously, having a healthy Jakob Poeltl or some form of 7-footer would help them play more styles of ball. But I do think with Mamu, with Colin Murray-Boyles, with the way Scottie Barnes is just kind of doing everything defensively, they can play sort of a multiplicitous style and have it be effective. And I also think, like, Scottie Barnes and Brandon Ingram, to me, both feel like playoff players. Scottie Barnes, we saw in the very brief time he played in the playoffs back in his rookie season, was kind of a boss in that series against the Sixers. Obviously, health kind of held that team back. They go down 0-3 because they just didn't have how healthy Scottie Barnes, and Gary Trent Jr. was hurt, and it just wasn't really a fully functioning version of that team. They were missing some key pieces. But Brandon Ingram, too. Like, I think Ingram, he's someone, the last time he was in the playoffs, got totally cooked by Lou Dort. That happens, right? He was hurt. Everyone knows this. In the other series he's played in the postseason, he put up like 27, 5-5 against the Phoenix Suns team that was quite good until they wet themselves in the next round. Like, I think that's the style of player that works in the playoffs, right? Big, mid-range, heavy shot creator, shot taker, kind of can play in the mud a little bit. I think they've got that going for them as well. And I just think, like, it's a team that has like a lot of ways they can beat you, right? This is not the kind of team that I think is super easy to game plan for defensively, thinking about it in a playoff scenario, say compared to like Detroit, where it's like, okay, we know they can't really shoot and Cade kind of does everything. You can scheme for that and kind of force a team to play out of its comfort zone. If you throw one coverage at the Raptors, I think they have different ways they can kind of counter and play back at you and sort of make it so you have to make tough decisions. there are obviously things we can get into, the drawbacks to this team as well. We'll do that coming up. But overall, like there is if you squint, you can see a case for why this team might have some playoff metal to it. Well, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think when you look at putting together the ceilings of these players and this version of Immanuel Quickley that we've seen, I think Brandon Ingram, even on top of what he can provide in terms of individual isolation scoring when you need it in the postseason. I think the fact that he's showing that he can be a net positive defender
Totally.
with the way he's contributing on that end of the floor, I think that is a huge thing. And then I think RJ Barrett, his ability to get to the rim, we'll see about you look at the way Jacoby Walter is able to close out a game on Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and the merits of using his defensive capabilities in a playoff series, and his ability to shoot the ball, because that's going to be a huge thing for this team, right? In the playoffs. So when you get into those situations and, all of a sudden if Jamal Shead and Jacoby Walter and Grady Dick and Ochai Agbaji, then they just can't hit a shot, like you're up against the 8 ball. But if you get those nights where they are, and more nights of those are happening, and you look at, I think an important thing that this team is starting to show that maybe they've figured out is how to attack a zone defense.
Hey, we love it. They beat the high school defense.
Then yeah, there is a path.
Yeah. We'll get into some of the reasons why they won't probably ultimately make the NBA finals. But I think all that stuff stands out. And I do think as well, just like they have an elite defense. I think that's pretty established at this point. They did it against the Thunder, one of the best offensive teams in the league. Yes, they were missing some guys, but also they've been missing some guys all year whilst steamrolling the entire NBA. So I'm not particularly compelled by but this wasn't the full freight Thunder thing. Like they're the Thunder. They're really damn good. They're an excellent defensive team themselves. And they are a wonderful offensive team. And the Raptors shut them down. The Raptors have shut down offenses throughout the season. They are the number 6 defense in the league right now per clean the glass. Some metrics paint them as high as 3 or 4. They're in that. If they're not elite on the sort of level of the Thunder, they are in the next tier down. And that is, I think, a thing that can carry over into the playoffs for sure. It's exciting.
They're the best clutch defense.
They are the best clutch defense, which if you just transpose that onto the playoffs, like it's all clutch time in the playoffs, therefore the best defense in the NBA, right?
There you go.
We will get into more of this coming up, some matchups that we think are interesting, maybe kind of rank the teams in the East by how likely we think it is that they will, in fact, win 3 series and make it through the Eastern Conference. We'll do all that as we continue this broad talk about whether or not the Raptors got the juice to go all the way to the finals and ultimately get squashed by whoever they play out west, coming up in just 1 second. Today's show is brought to you by TurboTax. You know me. I hate doing my taxes. I don't like doing life admin, and taxes are like the worst form of life admin. Those are not terribly fun. Tax season doesn't have to take over your life, though. This year, TurboTax is making it easier than ever to just hand things off and move on with your day. With TurboTax full service, you can hand off your taxes to be done for you by a trusted local expert, start to finish, without the stress or guesswork. Instead of spending hours trying to figure out forms, you can meet with a local TurboTax expert in person or connect online. They handle everything from W-2s to self-employed forms and work to get you every single deduction. You can upload your documents, go about your day, and get updates right in the TurboTax app. It's a huge time saver and gives real peace of mind knowing an expert is handling it. A wonderful thing. You should go and explore this tax season. For a limited time, you can have your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert for just $150 all in. If a TurboTax expert didn't file for you last year, just file by February the 28th. Take taxes off your plate and get back to your life. Visit TurboTax.com/local to book your appointment today. Back at it here with our pal Vivek Jacob, Big V, talking about the Raptors and their chances of navigating through the gauntlet or anti-gauntlet of what that is, the Eastern Conference, to maybe make it to an NBA Finals. Feeling our britches a little bit after a 4-1 road trip. Wildly impressive stuff from your Toronto Raptors. Okay. Before we dive into that, just a reminder, the Locked On Raptors Everydayer Club is open and available for you to sign on up. $5 a month, $50 for the year. Gets you ad-free episodes of this podcast every single day. And it also gets you access to the Locked On Discord. The NBA chat in there is popping off a little bit. And I think it's only going to get more fun as the season continues. The playoffs, races heat up, all that good stuff. Come hang out in the Locked On Raptors Discord. A great alternative to some of the other websites where people used to talk about sports, and it was fun. All right, Big V. Let's jump on in to some reasons to maybe sort of guard yourself against getting a little too out over your skis here. I made the case for them having playoff juice. I think the case against them having playoff juice, they're not especially playoff stress tested, right? Like this is usually a thing we see. Teams kind of got to go through it once, twice, 3 times before they can really kind of climb over all of those hurdles and get where they want to go. It's not always this way. Like sometimes teams just kind of do the thing right out of the gate, but it's way more common that it takes a year or two of failure in order for you to kind of further advance upon what you've done. It's also just hard to win in the playoffs. And they've got a handful of guys who I think, yes, they have some dudes who I think will be playoff proof and some other guys who I think you can look at and say, is that a playoff proof player, right? Are they going to get poked at in the defensive environment that is playing playoff basketball where mismatch hunting is so much more important? It's more of a half court, drag it out style of play. You can't get out and run as much as the Raptors tend to like to do. They're the most frequent transition team in basketball. That's going to be tested very much in the playoff environment. Can Mamu hold up the way he has defensively in a playoff series? Can they get by if Jakob Poeltl is anything less than 80 to 90% of himself? We have no idea when he's even going to be back. Can Colin Murray-Boyles as a rookie hold up with all of that responsibility against teams that may have bigs you got to go up against and, kind of go to war with, and maybe just don't have the size to do it? And frankly, Immanuel Quickley, hell of a week. Been fantastic. I think this is probably, the high water mark of what you'd expect from him. You're probably not going to get player of the week level stuff every single week from him, but I do think there is a medium to be found between this past week and where he was at kind of earlier in the season. Is that medium good enough in a postseason environment? He struggled in the playoffs in the past. So you can poke and prod all you want and find reasons for optimism or skepticism. For you, Big V, are there sort of big, glaring, potentially fatal flaws you look at that might inhibit it from meeting them? Might inhibit them. Words might inhibit them from even winning 1 playoff series, let alone 3. Unique New York.
Oh, that was amazing.
It's a really good thing that I speak the language of English for my work.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a beautiful thing. Oh, man. After that mouthful.
Yeah. Just a simple yes or no might be a good palate cleanser.
So I think when you look at the Raptors' weaknesses, I think their ability to problem solve in real time would be a concern for me.
Sure.
I think when you look at the number of times that they've gone up against a zone defense and not been able to work their way through it, if there's half court problems that present itself in the playoffs, how long is it going to take them to really resolve something? And I could definitely see something where a team figures something out, and then all of a sudden the Raptors are just stuck trying to do the same thing and not able to come up with a solution. And maybe when you do, it's too late, or it's just a lesson for the offseason.
Yeah, or it takes like the time between 2 games to fix something, but you already lost 1 game, and that can swing a series.
Yeah. So I think that would be a concern for me. I think when you look at RJ Barrett as the only consistent sort of paint touch guy, obviously, Jamal Shed will be tested in that regard in terms of his dribble penetration. Can he do it in a postseason setting? And so that ability to break down a defense, I could see that again presenting problems for the offense. The defense, I have a lot of confidence in. So you could see them getting themselves, keeping themselves in games. But then, I could see games where it's like, okay, like you just need to hit this shot. And we're saying that for like a 5-minute stretch,
Right.
and then it's gone.
Yeah. The 3-point shooting thing is interesting, right? Because like I think in the playoffs, obviously they're going to have a math issue against a lot of teams. If they come up against like the Celtics, for example, that team just
Yep.
bombs a million threes. They also, though, with the way they play, with the way the Raptors prioritize, like looks at the rim and short mid-range stuff like that, like I think you can make the argument that they're less prone to variance kind of shooting them out of a series. Like I think we've seen that, right? We saw that with the Celtics last year against the Knicks, frankly, before Tatum went down. Like, they just couldn't make a three. And that can be something that swings a game, and that can swing a series too. You'd like for the Raptors to have a bit more of a sort of normal level of 3-point volume. And I think they've crept up a little bit over the last month or so, but not nearly enough to sort of the degree you'd want. Maybe Immanuel Quickley finding himself in some positive regression to the mean helps them become more accurate on the threes they do take, all that stuff. Like there's no requirement to be the team that takes the most threes to win the finals, right? Like the Nuggets did it a couple of years ago, shooting the fewest threes in the NBA. Obviously, they have an all-time offensive engine that gets them shots at the rim like it's nobody's business, and so you're working from a disadvantage not having that. But yeah,
The
like
Thunder are not a great 3-point shooting team.
absolutely not a great 3-point shooting team at all. And so, yeah, like you'll be hurt by the math in some ways, but also less prone to the math kind of doing math things and burying you at inopportune times. So you can kind of look at both sides of that coin as optimism versus skepticism. If you're looking at just the way the East is stacked up, how many teams would you list ahead of the Raptors as far as teams you would be not surprised if they won 3 playoff series? Like I think I may be at 5, 4, and I think I'm at 4, but I'm curious, what teams would you say you wouldn't be surprised to see win 3 playoff series, kind of in descending order from least surprised to most surprised? And I guess, is there a cutoff of just like, there's no damn way that team is doing that 3 times over?
So, I mean, yeah, this is kind of like a dread scale, like teams that you just don't want to see.
Yeah.
Would be thrilled to see Atlanta in the playoffs somehow.
Yeah, they stink. They're not winning any playoff
The
series.
Raptors absolutely love beating up on them. I think Miami, again, is something, a matchup that the Raptors really enjoy. So I'd feel very confident in the Raptors beating the Heat in the series, even though, as far as a coaching matchup is concerned, you'd absolutely take Spo. But I just don't think personnel-wise it lines up well for the Heat. I feel like, between Cleveland and Orlando, there's just something weird about Orlando where the games just end up really, really tight. And so I like the Raptors' chances, but maybe for whatever reason, I still like going up against the Cavs. Maybe that'll change as they continue to find a groove here and Garland is more healthy. And obviously the Raptors didn't face them at their best when they did beat them. So, that might be a situation where, you go, what was it, 2015, where the Raptors kind of swept the season series with the Wizards and then you got them in the playoffs and it was a completely different story. So maybe that's that type of team there. And then, Detroit, because of the experience factor, you'd say, hey, that's winnable. They have one go-to guy, and then you just got to manage the rest, where with the Raptors, you're saying, okay, well, we have our own go-to guy in BI, and we've still got some other really, really good guys around him. Obviously, Jalen Duren's going to be a problem for the Raptors in a series. But that's one where you're looking at a top team that I would not be surprised if the Raptors were able to come away with it. Then there's like the two teams that can really shoot the ball well, Boston, New York. I think that could be a potential problem. I'd say Boston is probably the team I least want to see.
Interesting.
Like, if there's a team that I would much prefer some other team handle and get out the way, like if another team were to knock out Boston, I'd be like, whoa, something could really happen here.
Yeah.
And so New York, I give them the experience factor. I give them the Brunson factor late in games. Like I could see that series going similarly to how the Pistons series went last year,
Sure. Yeah.
where everyone's impressed by how well the Raptors are defending and competing, and then Brunson just kills you at the end. Philly is obviously the wild card. I would give them the advantage, if Embiid is playing the way he is right now.
Sure.
But then you just don't know with them come April.
For me, so to kind of go back to my original question, I think for me, I would say there's 6 teams in the East I think in theory win 3 playoff series, make the finals. I think it's the current top 6. I think it's Pistons, Celtics, Raptors, Knicks, Cavs, Sixers. I think I'm still putting the Knicks as my favorite to actually do it. I know they've not played super well of late. I just think they have the best roster and the kind of best mix of balance and depth and different options they can go with. The Celtics, they're probably number 2, but I don't feel certain that like Luka Garza's regular season success is going to carry over to the postseason. Like I think that's a pretty thin team. Obviously subject to change if Jason Tatum comes back, and all of this is subject to change if any of these teams make big deadline moves, right? Like if the Pistons go get Michael Porter Jr., then certainly that changes the calculus for them too. But I think I go Knicks 1, Celtics 2. I probably do the Cavs 3, even though I do not particularly believe in the Cavs all that much. Pistons 4, Raptors 5, Sixers 6, because I just don't think, as much as it sucks to say, like I don't think Embiid's holding up through an entire 3 series run through a playoffs. And so I think the Raptors have the 5th best chance of any of these 6 teams that I think can actually probably make a real case they can do it, to actually do it. I want to get into on the other side here, Big V. Do the Raptors front office brass owe it to this team to go make another move to bolster their chances, or is having one of the 6 best chances to make the finals in the Eastern Conference enough for what this season is, and you just let it ride? We will talk about that coming up in just 1 second. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Game Time, and there's nothing like being in an NBA arena, the crowd, the energy, the moment. Getting tickets, though, that hasn't always been particularly easy, especially if you think about Toronto Raptors tickets. It's a hot ticket, especially when the Raptors are good. That's why Game Time has become the go-to app for scoring tickets fast without the hassle. It puts the advantage back where it belongs, with the fans. You pull up the Game Time app, pick an upcoming NBA game, and tickets are locked within minutes. You get to see all your price up front, right? There's no surprise fee slapped on at the end. You know what you're paying all in right away. No surprise back end. Things that make you question, should I actually make this purchase? Being able to view the view from your seat as well is a pretty big deal. If you've never been to an arena before, you get to see exactly what the sight lines are going to be like. Everything feels quick, intuitive, stress-free from start to finish. I'm a regular Game Time user because I love it. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. That's code LOCKEDONN for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. And remember, it's gametime.co, not gametime.com. Gametime.co. Back at it here with Vivek Jacob, Big V, talking about the Raptors' chances in the Eastern Conference to go make a run. And if we establish that the Raptors are maybe not one of the absolute favorites to go and do the thing, at least have a puncher's chance to do the thing, we come back to the old Daryl Morey thing, which is like, if your team has a 5% chance to win a championship, do you kind of go all in to optimize that chance? I don't know if you'd say the Raptors have a 5% chance to win a championship. Maybe it's like 2. I don't know. Like Kevin Pelton can put a number on it for us if you over at ESPN. But I think for me, it's an interesting question philosophically. This team is playing extremely well going into the deadline. They are on this streak. They picked up their probably best win of the season over the Thunder, feeling themselves a little bit. Their defense is elite. There's a lot of stuff here that in a typical year you might say, hey, like this is worth sort of getting reinforcements for because this team's got the goods. I also think, though, because this is kind of year one of them being competitive and they're already kind of way overshooting their expectations, there's an element of like anything they do in the playoffs at this point will kind of be gravy Maybe that's a silly way to approach it, though, because the East is open. You never know if it's going to be this open again. The Pacers might be back and armed with also Darren Peterson along with Tyrese Halliburton next year, and Pascal Siakam. The Celtics are probably going to get Jason Tatum back next year, if not this year. It's always sort of a constant cycle of up and down when it comes to the best teams in a conference. But where do you come down on it, Big V? Like, if you were the front office right now, are you looking to kind of go further in, maybe, expend some future assets to get some help in the door, maybe address the Jakob Poeltl absence by going and paying up for a center replacement, whether it's a short-term or long-term one? Or are you just kind of like, you know what, things are pretty good, there's no need to kind of fix what ain't broke at the moment. They're getting by just fine, even with the Poeltl injury hanging over the team. And whatever they do in the playoffs, okay, you live with it and move on and kind of evaluate in the summer and going into next year.
I think it would be unwise to break up the, fully healthy version of the playing rotation right now.
Sure.
I think that getting a 7-footer in place of, someone in that glut of guard wing positions is important. Just to have the option. And I think beyond that, the reason I think it's unwise is because, if you think about the 2019 Raptors, that was a very experienced team. Totally. That can bring in someone like Marc Gasol at the trade deadline and say, yeah, we'll figure this out.
Yeah, all the basketball geniuses we employ are going to be fine here.
Yeah. And so, and obviously Marc is a very malleable player and was going to fit in that way. But I think with this young team, to give them a couple of months now where you bring in like an all-star tier talent, and then have to figure it out. And let's not forget, Darko has really not had the opportunity to just coach one team for an entire season yet.
Right, yeah.
So I think it would be unwise to take that away from him as well. And I think it would, you then have to afford him the slack, the appropriate slack in evaluating this season. And so for those reasons, I would be against it. Obviously, there's the tax situation where if they're being instructed to manage things a certain way and they feel the best way to do that is with a bigger move, then it just is what it is. And that kind of sucks. But wouldn't be the first team to be kind of, where they've had the tax implications dictate what they do. So yeah, I think for me, it's just a move around the margins to just get a 7-footer in place of, it looks like the most likely candidate is Ochai Agbaji, and then just keep it rolling.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I made the point a few weeks back when Jake Fisher was reporting about the Raptors' interest in sort of big moves and the sort of his read on the situation was the way the team performs between now and the deadline will inform how aggressive they will be. And I think there was this sort of thought of, well, if they're really good, then that's going to mean they're going to go and make big moves. And I kind of took the opposite approach where I thought if they're really good, I think that gives them license to just kind of chill a little bit and maybe make a small move on the margins and not pursue this sort of big, flashy Ja Morant, Domantas Sabonis type move or Anthony Davis that was kind of rumored at the time. I think those moves would be way more sort of justifiable and likely if the team was kind of spinning its wheels and was like around 500 instead. And I think that's going to bear out to be true. Like, I don't think right now you can make a credible case that like they simply must go get Domantas Sabonis right now. And yeah, I know the Poeltl thing is hanging over the team. The contract isn't great. We don't know when he's going to be back, and they seem to be already looking to find ways to try to dump him. But his situation is not precluding them from winning right now. And there are ways to address that without just like, we got to make the biggest move possible to dump this contract, no matter the giant salary that comes back the other way. And, I kind of liken it almost to like the DeMarre Carroll situation back when he was injured in his first season with the Raptors. And was just kind of like, okay, they're spending like a gigantic portion of the cap at the time, like $15 million a year on this guy who's not playing. And he was not very effective for 2 years. And they eventually got out of it and they paid a first rounder. They ended up reorganizing, getting CJ Miles on the team out of it. Like, there are ways out of this that aren't immediate, that need to be sort of solved right now. And you also run the possibility, if you keep him, of, hey, maybe he's actually healthy for the playoffs and he's giving you some fresh legs at the end of the year and you're fine. And he kind of plays himself back into some sort of reputability trade value wise around the league. I'm with you though. I have been pretty reticent all season long to like give up real assets for a big man, just because I feel like what they've got in house is working pretty damn well, and there's no need to go and sort of get yourself a Nick Richards or anything like that. I do think at this point they kind of should probably steel themselves against the idea that Poeltl might be out for the entire season. It's sort of like this thing where they've gotten better, and so you can kind of have loftier hopes. Poeltl's injury situation has gotten more and more murky by the day, and I am more open to, like, even if it costed like a protected first round pick or something like that to go find like a real big man upgrade, I think I'd entertain that in sort of like the Ochai plus maybe another salary going out type of deal. Day'Ron Sharpe's the guy who comes to mind. He's got to be paid this summer. I don't know how that all works, but there's options out there. Day'Ron Sharpe and above is kind of what I'm looking at. Nick Richards not cutting it for me. But yeah, I'm more open to the idea of expending real assets to go and find that big man than I was before, because of the confluence of the Poeltl issues with the team just playing extremely well and maybe kind of deserving that extra boost as they go down the stretch. And hopefully a guy, as I think Garrett Temple said on the Raptors show yesterday, a guy that doesn't sort of upset the chemistry or the vibes in the room either, which seemed very important. This is a team built on the power of friendship, Big V. Can't go messing with that, as we saw with the Blue Jays as well this past year. Just the vibes extremely high for all but the Toronto Maple Leafs and Toronto sports. Big V, any last parting shots on this before we wrap things up? And if not, fire away and plug some stuff, huh?
Yeah, man, always fun chatting the Raptors with you. You can find my usual stuff at Raptors in 7. I just put together some takeaways from the West Coast trip, broke down some of what's working so well for Immanuel Quickley right now, so you can go check that out. I will have a story on the Raptors going up against a zone defense coming to you very soon once you get my takeaways in the books. So you can look forward to that as well. And besides that, it's going to be a busy couple of months here, because I will be helping cover the Winter Olympics for Yahoo Canada.
Hell yeah, brother. Very excited for your hockey takes. Puck V. Cannot wait. Anyway, everyone go support Vivek's work. Joe Wolfon's writing over Raptors in 7 now too. You should definitely go subscribe and get those sweet emails, baby. You can find me on socials, Instagram. I do videos and stuff after games sometimes, and I sometimes am wearing full winter gear out in the wilderness when I do those. You can also sign up for the Everydayer Club, $5 a month, $50 for the year, gets you ad-free access to the show every single day, plus access to the Locked On Discord and other fun bonus perks. Link in the description of the podcast for that. You can also join our Discord, link in the description of the podcast. Great place to come hang out, talk ball among friends. It's a great listener community we got building over there. And it's really fun when the Raptors are good. And this past week was a lovely time for the Discord. Discord after dark for these late basketball games was a true delight. Anyway, we'll be back again on Wednesday. Might do a little check-in on some awards talk, as the Raptors might be putting their name in for a little bit of hardware around the league. Might even get our pal Dwayne Notice on for that from the Locked On Raptors postcast. And in the meantime, thank you so much. Talk to you soon. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.